marketing and olive stewardship practices and pesticide label directions.
Blue Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
Who would have thought there'd be entire aisles devoted to bottled water, and that people would buy more water than pop? I'm Brian with Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters here in Fort Dodge. Spring water, drinking water, mineral water. There's so many choices, and we're proud to offer you them all. From our own refreshingly pure drinking water to ultra-pure Mountain Valley spring water, Blue Ribbon Pelham's is your complete water store.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I am the Doctor of Truth. Joining me now is at least the Lieutenant Colonel of Truth. That's Sam Clovis. How are you, Sam?
Colonel of Truth.
Colonel of Truth. Were you a full bird, Colonel?
Yes, I was.
You know, I think every now and then when I look at Democratic politicians, there's not one of them that has a resume like yours or was common in years past. As a matter of fact, most of them are squirrels. And they're law school graduates and in general pain in the neck. I mean, what does Adam Schiff and Charles Schumer have to say to their credit other than they went to law school and they've been lifetime hacks in Congress all these years? I mean, it's pathological liars. Well, let's get to the lying part right away, and I will use this against I will say this against the backdrop of Letitia James. Now, Letitia is the Attorney General of the state of New York, and she is determined to throw Trump in jail, President Trump in jail, as is the January 6th committee. And, of course, we're approaching the anniversary of this attempt in our democracy. I'm sorry, I haven't seen one of the people jailed, and there's been over 400 of them, that rise to the role of terrorist or revolutionary. They were, in some cases, misguided, and they certainly shouldn't have breached the Capitol grounds. But come on, most of them were just working stiffs. They are not. What
they did was stupid, but it was, and there are consequences for bad decisions. And but I don't think they were insurrectionists. I don't think that an insurrection is not spontaneous. An insurrection is certainly not executed in a way that where you march up to the Capitol and you make it known exactly what you're going to do. And an insurrection is characterized in so many other ways, and this did not rise to that level, whatever it was that happened on January 6th.
This whole thing is driven by Nancy Pelosi, who is still hysterical. And I know it's bad form for a man to imply that a woman may be more emotional than a man, but this is a test case. Nancy Pelosi lost her mind. Remember her conversation with General Milius. I mean, she wanted General Milius to safeguard our country against Donald Trump because he was crazy. She was screaming on the phone at the general. And she is the driving force behind this whole January 6th investigation. The Republicans were allowed, I thought, to put a couple of Republicans of their choosing onto this panel. But Nancy Pelosi didn't like who the Republicans wanted and replaced them with Adam Kinzinger, I believe his name is, from Illinois, who is a Republican.
Kinzinger.
And he was a Republican in name only. And Liz Cheney, who apparently has the biggest grudge on her, or who has the biggest chip on her shoulder against Donald Trump that I've ever seen. And she's mainly acting on behalf, I think, Sam, and you can weigh in on this. She's mainly acting on behalf of the Bush family, who will not forgive Trump for beating Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush set fire to $40 million and called it a campaign. He was
$150
million, and he didn't even come close. And that burned the creme de la creme of the Republican Party that has always ruled the Republican Party and in some cases the country. And they believe they have some sort of God-given right to continue to do so. Look, we're rich and accomplished people, and we are going to rule. Now, there is an argument for accomplished people, not people possessing a PhD necessarily, but for accomplished people to say, I should be your leader. And that would be a good argument. However, this is a democracy, and I think everybody likes a democracy. Do you like democracy, Sam? I do.
Well, I like constitutional republic. I don't like democracy. I think that democracy empowers the majority far greater. So that's why I look for representational government, and I think that's a far better approach to what we have, because if you go with pure democracy, then you have mob rule, and that is exactly what the Democrats want. And that's why they use the word democracy over and over and over again, is because they know that they can control the media. They know they can control the narrative. They know they can control everything, and they can convince people, because if you say the lie often enough, then it oftentimes becomes the truth. And the bigger the lie, the more you have to say it. And so I think that from just not to pick nits here, but I'm not a democracy fan. I am a representational government fan.
What do you think is the big difference between the two?
Well, a democracy is, let's say that we are at a city council meeting, okay?
Yeah.
Or let's say that if you want to see pure democracy, let's go to a caucus, a Republican caucus. And there you see that there's 181 votes for Donald Trump, and there's 79 votes for Rick Perry, and on down the line. Well, that is a democracy, because that is where that group of people, the small number of people that have the ability to influence that, or let's say that you're at a city council meeting with 7 members and the vote is 4-3, that is democracy. Now, those people represent, and in my view, they represent people in their districts or people in their, so they have to measure and calculate that. So that becomes representational. And if you go to a town hall meeting, and let's say that you're let's say you live in a small town. I'm trying to think of a small town over near Fort Dodge, that the Humboldt. Let's say you live in Humboldt, and they have a town hall, and they're going to vote on that night. They're going to vote on a bond issue for the high school, and that's democracy. There's no representational aspect to that. It's a pure vote right there. People vote, and that's it. The representational aspect means that in each level of government, there is that you select what Althusius used to call prudent magistrates, or what he called prudent magistrates.
Althusius.
Those prudent magistrates are the ones that represent your interests. And Althusius went on to say that if the magistrates don't do what you tell them to do, now I want you to listen to the words. You have the duty and the right to change them.
That's right.
Now, the duty and the right, if you think about those words, you think about the Declaration of Independence, almost those exact words were used in the Declaration of Independence to say that we had the obligation and the right to change the form of government to gain our security. That was, if you read the Declaration of Independence, that's what it says.
That is correct, of course.
Yeah.
That is correct, of course. But I don't think, I understand what you're saying. Would a parliamentary system, if we installed a parliamentary system, in other words, more than 2 parties, because the 2-party system is given credit in our country for maintaining the stability of our country. I think we're past it. I think we're past the point where these 2 parties should rule.
I think the 2 parties have been in the last 20 years have been a detriment to our country. I would go back as far as Reagan. I would say that at the end of Bush 1's, when Bill Clinton was elected, I think that the two-party system started to become a detriment to our country and not a stabilizing factor.
Would a parliamentary system help?
I think a part of now there are some interesting aspects of that, of a parliamentary system, or there would be now one thing that would be of great interest to me, and I've experimented with this. I haven't really I've never written anything on it, and I think that one of these days I probably should. But and that's the professor in me coming out. But I think that if you went to congressional district one, I think that right now the average congressional district is about 750,000 people in per district. I think that number, if you want a truer picture of the country and you want better representation in the House of Representatives, I think the House and the Senate is fine. I don't see that we need to change the two senators per state. I think that is an excellent thing as long as they maintain their parliamentary rules. They keep the filibuster, which, by the way, is coming up under great stress from Chuck Schumer right now.
Yes, it is.
And let me finish my thought. I'm occupying a lot of time here, Mike. But
that's all right.
What I think would be interesting is let's reduce that number from 750,000, let's say, down to 600 or 500,000. So that means we have to add X number of seats to the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. Now, the populous states will still gain greatly there. What I would like to see, though, is if you had a partial, let's say like South Dakota. South Dakota has maybe 1 million people in it.
Right.
If you have 1 million people and you go down to 500,000, then you have 2 representatives. You have 2 districts. And then every state would have at least 2 districts. And you would maybe have 900 people in the House of Representatives, okay? That, to me, is a much better system. That system, then, and here's the other thing, change the Electoral College to a district, a congressional district by congressional district. If you were able to do that, I would have to go through and see if that would be fair to I think if you went to a district by district representation, you would stand a very good chance of being able to break out 3, 4, or 5 different strains of political parties that then you could run a person on a constitutional ticket. You could run a person, and because that becomes a real issue. Because then, if you cut down that population number, you add more congressional districts, you change the Electoral College effectively to that, then I think you have a very good chance of being able to get a much better strain, go to 3, 4, or 5 different parties that would be able to get people elected at different things. Now think about this: if you had the 4th congressional district of Iowa,
mm-hmm.
where you are, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say the 4th congressional district. So instead of running a Republican primary and a Democrat, a primary, or whatever the circumstances may be, I think that the 4th district would be ripe. And let's say you shrunk the size of it a bit, I think the 4th district would be ripe for an independent candidate or 2 to come in there and compete. I think it would be ripe for that. Not every district would be, but I think the 4th district of Iowa would be an excellent example of a place where you could get 2, 3, 4 maybe even 5 people on the ballot, and you could go out there and run and see how that would go. Now, the truth of the matter is that money is the mother's milk of politics. You would have to have some kind of, I would like to see the election cycles shortened. I would like to see now I know that money is speech, but I think that I would like to see some form of campaign finance reform. And of course, we'll never agree on that either. But if you're asking me, those are the things I think that would really allow for those extra parties. I also think this, though. I think in the not too distant future, you are likely to see a substantive splintering of the Republican Party. I think you stand a very good chance of seeing the Republican Party split and something different come about from that. And I really do. I think that I think it will be very difficult for the Republicans, quote unquote, or conservatives to win because of the 2-party system that we have. But I think if we are smart about it, if I'm a conservative, and let's say I want to splinter, I want to break off from the Republican Party.
Right.
If we're smart about it, I think we can pull that off and we can win X number of seats, which in de facto gets us to a parliamentary system.
Sam, I'm going to take issue with you just a little bit. When we talk about a third party, the party that reacts most viciously is the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is a large gathering of social workers and their clients. Now, that's at best. And really, it's a group. The Democratic Party is tribes with flags, where
Yep.
I mean, there's so many different groups within the Democratic Party who don't see eye to eye and who don't even like each other, but are forced into this Democratic voting bloc, that the Democratic Party is afraid if there's a legitimate third party, and there's been some good runs, Libertarian parties come along, that sort of thing. But if we really seriously tried to establish a parliamentary system, the Democrats would be done.
Well, I concur, but I think that they would wither and die on the vine. It would take probably a decade or so for that to take place. They're not going to happen overnight. And the other thing is that the Republican Party took several cycles after they broke off from the Whig Party to essentially transform the Whigs to the Republican Party. Now, this has happened before.
Yeah,
I think that this is my view is that we have changed coalitions in this country, whereas the Democrats used to represent the union worker, the blue collar, the gray collar, the clean collar worker.
The party of the people.
That is no longer true. I think the Republican Party is a much better representative of those coalitions than the Democrats are.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest is Sam Clovis. I'm going to come back to the Bush family and the how should I describe them? It's almost a monarchist tendency that they have.
It is oligarchical, where you have or aristocratic. I think aristocratic is a good word. Because what you have is the royal, you have the landed gentry, the royal families, the titled people who feel entitled. The House of Lords.
Yeah, in 2016, I am, looking back now, I'm so glad that Donald Trump was a nominee for no other reason than we could have had a Bush and a Clinton running again. Bush and Clinton, Clinton and Bush. I mean, talk about an oligarchy. My God, talk about a hereditary monarchy. And then to have Clinton lose. By the way, I'm just going to say this about Nancy Pelosi. She is a hysteric, but that doesn't mean she's a hysteric because she's a woman. Hillary Clinton would have got mad about what happened She would have gotten mad about what happened January 6th, but she wouldn't have panicked and tried to throw everybody in jail like Nancy Pelosi is doing. Hillary Clinton has a little more respect. I can't believe I'm saying this about Hillary Clinton. She has a little bit more respect for our country than Nancy Pelosi does. As far as
I would say this. I would say that the hysterical aspects of Nancy Pelosi's behavior is put on because I think she is a true Democrat, and you never let a crisis go to waste. And this is why she found an opportunity through this January 6th event to raise her level of hysteria and to excite the nation, excite her party to do that, because the hate and fear of Donald Trump is so great that they would do anything to make sure that he has never a chance to be the nominee or run for president again. Because they fear him. They fear him.
They are scared to death of Donald Trump. It's almost pathetic, but they are scared to death of Donald Trump.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I have more faith in our system of government than Nancy Pelosi does, or
Yep.
most of the Democratic Party. Sam Clovis is our guest. I want to take up with you the oligarchy thing in the next segment, Sam. And if you have something, please bring it forth. But it's from what I've seen of this January 6th thing, it's especially with the Sunday talk shows over the weekend, it was crazy. So, Sam, give us a call in about 7 minutes, will you?
I shall indeed.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for that.
Getting your guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like discovering a yard.
I'm the refund tree.
Sawing off its branches,
Hey,
feeding them through a wood chipper,
my branches, my beautiful branches.
and dancing in its refund rain. Start for free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
The day we've all been dreaming of is approaching, when life gets back to normal. But we're not there yet. So please, everybody, do your part. Get vaccinated against COVID-19 as soon as possible, because that's the best way to protect you. Protect them. Protect everybody. It's the best way to get Iowa back to normal. Find a COVID vaccine location near you at vaccinateiowa.gov.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
When winter winds start to blow, be prepared with the Winter Weather Advisor on KVFD. We'll keep you informed on hazardous driving conditions, delays, and cancellations. The Winter Weather Advisor is brought to you by Riley Armstrong Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing and sewer emergencies don't usually happen during normal business hours. Relax knowing Riley Armstrong Plumbing and Heating is there for you 24/7. Take the worry out of winter with the Winter Weather Advisor on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
For KVFD News, I'm Brooke Bickford. A man accused in the November 15th armed robbery of a gas station in Fort Dodge has pled not guilty to all charges. According to the Fort Dodge police records, 32-year-old Thomas Boone of Fort Dodge was arrested December 1st and charged in connection to the robbery that had happened at the Star convenience store on North 22nd Street. Boone of Fort Dodge is charged with 1 count of first-degree robbery, 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon, and 1 count of trafficking in stolen weapons. He is currently being held in the Webster County Jail. His trial is slated to begin on March 1st. A boil order is in effect for many Xenia water customers. This following a water main break on Monday along 330th Street east of Paragon Avenue in Webster County. According to the school district, Xenia Water contacted Southeast Valley Schools directly, as this boil order is required for the school buildings in Burnside and Farnhamville. The boil order may be necessary through Thursday. The outbreak of dozens of tornadoes in Iowa and across the region last month was very unusual, and one weather expert says it may be a sign of what lies ahead. Doug Cluck, Climate Services Director for the Central Region of the National Weather Service, says massive and rare derecho storms like the one that hit nearly all Iowa counties, including Webster, Hamilton, Calhoun, and Wright on December 15th, may be connected to a changing climate.
the center of Tornado Alley moving further east out of the Great Plains, and then, of course, simply the observation of severe weather in other parts of the year can lead one to that conclusion.
Parts of Iowa saw record high temperatures in the 70s prior to the storms that arrived on December 15th, and the warm air collided with a cold front, bringing exceptionally strong straight-line winds and multiple damaging tornadoes. Minnesota recorded its first ever December tornadoes that same day. The Biden administration is providing another $800 million to support smaller scale beef, pork, and poultry plants and is establishing a new tip line for whistleblowers. President Biden says the 4 largest meatpacking companies are distorting prices for farmers and for consumers. U.S. Agriculture Secretary and former governor of Iowa, Tom Vilsack, says the goal with this new batch of federal grants and loans is to invest in at least 15 small packing plants and to take steps to recruit and train new workers for the industry.
We're going to need a lot of innovation in this industry, and small and mid-sized facilities need to have the opportunity to have this innovation as opposed to the big 4.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Brooke Bickford.
Here's a look at how the markets closed on Tuesday. I'm Jesse Allen reporting for Dwayne Murley. March quarter up 20 1/4, 609.5. May quarter up 18.5 at 609.5. January soybeans up 34 3/4, 1378 3/4. March soybeans up 34 1/4, 1389 3/4. January bean meal up 370 a ton, 427.60. January bean oil up 193 points at 58.14. March Chicago wheat 12 higher, 770. March Kansas City winter wheat up 12.5, 804. March spring wheat up 5.5, 973 1/4. March oats up 11 1/4 at 692. Cattle were under pressure on Tuesday. Live cattle February down 110, 137.82. April down 152, 142.67. January feeder cattle down 357, 162.67. March down 317, 166.35. February hogs down 97, 80.15. April up 35 at 87 even. I'm Jesse Allen reporting for Dwayne Murley.
Getting your guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like discovering a refund tree has grown in your backyard.
I'm the refund tree.
Sawing off its branches.
Hey.
Feeding them through a wood chipper.
My branches! My beautiful branches!
And dancing in its refund rain. Start for free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
An online tool developed by Purdue University shows the potential vulnerability of food systems in the United States. I'm Julie Harker, and this is Healthy Living on Brownfield. Jason Lusk tells Brownfield the dashboard shows where food is produced and what inputs the food sector uses for different products. He uses the analogy of a recipe to describe it.
Let's say a batch of cookies, and you have a recipe in front of you. It's got flour, egg, sugar, and whatnot. Some of those ingredients you might be able to make a substitute for, but let's say there's no flour, you're going to be in trouble. You may not be able to make the cookies in any way that's recognizable. You may need to go knock on your neighbor's door.
Lusk says the dashboard is about food processing, what happens between the farm and the consumer.
That could involve farm ingredients because if you're going to have bakery, you need wheat, for example. You need oil, you need dairy products. And so those would be inputs to the bakery sector. And so from that standpoint, yes, it does look at the purchases of farm inputs. But what we're kind of focusing on is to produce that food product that the consumer needs. What are all the inputs that are involved in producing that, and how distributed are those across these different sectors?
He says the tool will give a better picture of where the food system might be vulnerable, with a focus on making sure grocery store shelves don't go bare again in the future. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
Mike Rowe here with a gentle reminder that civilization is held together by pipes, wires, and cables. It's true. There are over 5 million miles of gas lines, power lines, fiber optic lines, water lines, and sewer lines, all buried beneath your feet. And every 60 seconds, somebody digs into one. Look, if you're thinking about digging around, do yourself a favor and call 811 first just to find out what's down there. Trust me, you don't want to find out the hard way. Call or click 811 before you dig and visit safeexcavator.com for more info.
As a truck driver, I've learned how important road safety is. I know that large trucks need more time and room to stop. That's why I always hang back and follow other vehicles at a safe distance. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're driving, try to remember to always give trucks extra space when you merge in front of them. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD. If you don't listen to him, you suck.
Well, I would say that for sure. The program brought to you again today by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters is at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481 or online at www.ftwaters.com. Not sucking today, by the way, is Sam Clovis. He returns to the program. How you doing, Sam?
Doing great. How about you?
Well, I'm doing great. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. You're down to the core Republican, and you know about what's happening within the Republican Party. Within both our major parties, there's always squabbles. Certainly in the Democratic Party, there's all kinds. The left, the far left, is pushing Joe Biden in one way, and there's other pressures on Joe Biden within his own party. But there seems to be, and this isn't reported on very often, a struggle in the Republican Party between the monarchists or the aristocrats, the Bush family, the Cheney family, people like that, who eschew social issues entirely. They're not interested in issues like controlling the border. They don't really care about gun rights or abortion or those sorts of things. What they are really concerned about is making sure that the tax and regulatory structure in our country is favorable to their constituents, who George W. Bush described as the have-mores.
Yeah.
There's the have-mores and the really have-mores, and his constituents, this is according to the former president, are the have a lot more. So they're ticked. They've been edged out all the way for the first time, really, in the history of the Republic. And they are using Liz Cheney as their instrument. What do you know about this struggle inside the party?
Well, I do know that it's relative, and I just go on the it's mostly anecdotal data. I don't have any prima facie memos or documents or anything that would indicate that. I do know that there is a very pronounced or is becoming more pronounced and more visible struggle inside the Republican Party between the Trump loyals, the what is really now the base of the party, and
the future of the party.
Well, the future of the party and the controlling elites. And the reason it is the difference between the people who have the money and the people who have the votes.
Right.
That's the difference. And whether we want to be tawdry about it, we have to be, because money is the issue. Money is the driver. And it's the donors, the big donors, that do not want, they are the ones who look down their noses at these new coalitions that now comprise the Republican Party. They're looking down their noses.
Oh,
because
totally.
of that aristocratic view that they have, because they think we're stupid. They think we're uneducated. They think that we are emotion-driven. They think that they know better. They went to better schools. They have better pedigrees. They have better memberships at the clubs. They have all of these things. And what it really comes down to is the have-mores out there are really trying very hard to gain control or regain control of the Republican Party, because I think control of the Republican Party is slipping away from the aristocratic brand. And the reason I say that is that as again, we go back, money is the driver, but we have the votes.
Mm-hmm.
We're the people who vote. Now, if you want our votes, you're going to have to come and talk to us in a way and show us, because every person that we have sent to federal office has told us one thing to get there and has done something totally different once they get there.
Absolutely.
Every one of them. Every one of them. And the people are tired of being lied to. If you take, and I'll just give you an example, if you in the primary in 2014, Joni Ernst had as part of her primary campaign, conservative was part of her tagline. The moment she won the primary, you never heard the word conservative out of her campaign again. Not a single time. You have all of the promises to go there, and I'm not picking on Joni. You have all of the promises to go there and make people squeal. And all you find out is that she is in John McCain's pocket. She's in Lindsey Graham's pocket. She's in Jeff Flake's pocket. She is not there representing the interest of the people of Iowa. She is there to represent the interest of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and on down the line.
Well, she did kind of go Hollywood.
Again, and it's not just her. It's all of them. It's all of them. It's not one, it's all. And and that is, to me, is one of the things that I think will fracture the party eventually.
Yeah. Well, Joni's lucky she got reelected. I predicted she would lose, frankly, because she's so distant, and she has gone Hollywood. I mean, she didn't use any local. She didn't use any local media. Now, local media, I would talk our local newspapers and local radio stations. The other candidates did, but Joni didn't. She didn't even employ a public relations firm in the state of Iowa or even in the Midwest. She was working with a D.C. Republican Party affiliated major public relations firm.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, I mean, and every time you see her, it's like, and this is the embarrassing part for me, and I'm not trying to say anything about President Trump, but she makes it looks like she's on a leash attached to Donald Trump's hand. It's sad. And I don't know what she's done. I don't know what she's doing for the state. I mean, I had on this radio program, the last election cycle, most of the candidates. Teresa Greenfield, I got a hold of right away. She came on the air right away. She was on the air a couple of times. My God, I had to go through the Praetorian Guard to get to Joni Ernst, press person in Washington, D.C., who was from somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
I mean, Joni is, I don't know, maybe she's been promised a big job if she loses her seat. I don't know. But anyway, on to Liz Cheney here. She was on Face the Nation yesterday. And of course, I have to watch the Sunday morning talk shows. I guess I don't have to, but I like to. And Liz, we're not hearing about this split in the Republican Party because it doesn't fit the liberal media narrative. Yep. There was Liz Cheney, as she is every single time, looking like a somewhat sad, brave warrior facing the truth,
right,
and enforcing the truth. It was sickening. I mean, it was sickening. Here is a headline. This is a quote from Joni. Here's a quote from Liz Cheney from The Guardian. Representative Cheney says Republicans must choose between Trump and the truth. How do you like that one, huh? Liz Cheney is the truth.
It's a false choice.
Of course it is. It's nothing but a line of garbage.
Well, it's a false choice because the notion is that Trump represents is not. There's nothing valid about Donald Trump. I'm sorry. Donald Trump got 76 million votes in the last election. There's something valid about him. And if you ever gone to a rally, a Trump rally, there's something valid about him. And what I think it is that that Liz Cheney and the Bushes and a lot of the money people in the Republican Party, they to this day I think they still have trouble understanding how it is that Trump got the nomination and how Trump won the election. I think they are still mystified as to how that happened. I really do.
Mystified or horrified? It was taken out of their hands.
Well, I think that the other thing is that they go into deep denial.
They
I
do.
mean, if you think the Democrats are in denial, try the Never Trumpers, because their whole approach, and this is the thing that I would argue very strongly about, is that I have people that would come to me, and I said there are 4 principles of conservatism, and the 4 pillars is what I call the 4 pillars of conservatism. And if you this is, I do have a litmus test. I'm sorry, I do. And the first is, do you believe in limited government? And if you don't believe in limited government, you're not a conservative. So don't wrap yourself in that cloak. The second is fiscal responsibility. If you don't believe in fiscal responsibility, then you can't call yourself a conservative. You can't wrap yourself in that cloak. Where the Republicans always rally is they rally around, well, we got to have a strong national defense. Well, yeah, we do, but it's how you use that the defense is important. And the fourth one is the protection of cultural values. You don't see any mainstream Republicans running up to defend life. You don't see them running up to defend getting rid of cultural critical race theory. You don't see them running up. Where is the last time you heard a national level Republican talk about the elimination of critical race theory?
Yeah.
Or getting rid of the 1619 Project.
I would point
or getting rid of the Howard Zinn history books. You don't hear it.
No. I would point to Governor Branstad, former Governor Branstad, as a perfect symbol of that sort of thinking. Governor Branstad, when it came to social issues, he didn't want to hear it. And I heard that from several people, including your friend and mine, Steve King, Congressman Steve King.
Yep.
And he said this type of Republican, he did not focus on Governor Branstad for obvious reasons, but he said this type of, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't quote him directly. He said this type of Republican understands that feeling about cultural issues and moral issues will change. What they want to focus on is the money all the time. They want to make sure, again, that there is the right business, that there is protection for their biggest donors. And by the way, we're kind of dinging a certain section of the Republican Party right now, but don't forget what I've said all along, is that Joe Biden became the nominee of the Democratic Party because Wall Street refused to fund Sanders or Warren or any candidate like that. They're the people, those 2 candidates are who the party base really wanted. But Biden, who nobody wants. Nobody wants Joe Biden to be president. And he's the president. And he's the president because the Democratic Party had to have the money. They're more focused on the money the way the Republican, I should say, they are as focused on the money as the Republican Party that we're describing. So we have 2 supposedly different groups who are obsessed about money, and they're feeding the same people. They're literally funding the same people. They have the same attitude and the same belief as far as open borders for cheap labor and all these things.
Well, the line has been forever that there's not a dime's worth of difference between the Republican and Democrat Party inside the Beltway.
It's never been more true.
I've been there, and I can tell you there ain't a dime's worth of difference between them.
They both serve the same master, so I don't want to hear.
Exactly. I don't want to, in the swamp, it's not a swamp, it's a sewer.
Yeah.
And it is, I never, and every day I drove into work, every day, I felt like that I was going into a minimum security prison, and every night I got work release to go home and sleep in my own bed. That was what I had. That's kind of how I felt. And And now the fortunate thing was that I was serving with a lot of people who believed like I did. And for the first time in my political life, I really felt comfortable and validated. I would say that I felt validated for the way I believe, because the way I believe is the way we got Donald Trump elected president. We got him over the finish line. The thing that had distressed me was once I got there is that we were deeply outnumbered, and I could deal with the Democrat every day. I could deal with a Dianne Feinstein or Debbie Stabenow. I could deal with that because I knew exactly where they were coming from. What I couldn't deal with is the Republicans who would be on your side and then on your flanks and then turn around, and the next thing you felt was a sharp object going in between ribs. And that was because that was exactly what they would do. They would stab you in the back because you were an existential threat to their power base.
That's exactly right. And let me remind everyone again of something I've been talking about for a long time. I'm broadcasting from an old union town, and unions came about after a fierce struggle of ordinary people. Sam's not going to agree with me much on unions, but the union movement and the prosperity that followed the union movement came about after a fierce life and death struggle over years and years and years. And Bill Clinton and globalism took it apart in 8 years. And there is now widespread poverty among the working class in the United States of America. And the Democratic Party is directly responsible for that. And for that, I will never forgive them.
Well, when it comes to private sector unions, I'm 100% behind private sector unions because the market levels that. The market takes care of that. The market influences.
Certainly.
It is the public sector unions where you have people that are negotiating with the very people that they elect at school boards and state legislatures. They're negotiating the new contracts with the very people that they elected. So it is collusion at the highest level.
Oh, without a doubt.
And to me, that is one of the most unsavory aspects of this. And even FDR he was against the public sector unions because he knew what would happen with it. And you want to talk about the solidification or the crystallization of the deep state, and that is done through collective bargaining.
Yeah.
That is what hardens the administrating state to the point of being almost immalleable.
Yeah,
and
the Democrat.
That's it.
If the Democratic Party wants to come forward and tell us that the party is more moral than the average person in the state of Iowa because they support some guy who thinks he's a girl or anything like that, or that we should learn to live with the new America, which consists of non-citizens who are lowering the price of and the standard of living of American workers, some whose fathers fought for 3 generations to get them that standard of living, then they're wrong. They are wrong in a deeply moral way.
Well, I think what they do is immoral. I think that any time you take a look at particularly when it comes to immigration, what the Democrats support, and frankly, what some sectarian
trade-in values, and they offer great financing terms and prices that are competitive with any dealership. Stop in and talk with Brittany or Bernie. Rost Motor has all your favorite new Fords and a great selection of used vehicles. Rost Motor in Manson and online at rostmotor.com.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at jmike1400.
And this program being brought to you, of course, by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters is at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481 or online at www.fdwaters.com. Okay, we welcome to the program once again our highly capable city manager, David Furick. How you doing there, David?
Great, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm stoned, but that's another story. I prefer it that way.
You're more mellow because usually I'm like Dr. Evil or something.
Dr. Evil. Well, I kind of got over that. I even had a Dr. Evil poster in here for a while.
So now I'm the highly capable city
manager. Highly capable city manager.
So you got a happy buzz on that.
Well, I'm getting into the new year here, and this is really my first show of the new year. So I thought I'd start it out on a high note and then go right down the tubes as the year goes on. That's been my policy in the past, and so I didn't see any reason to change. Anyway, David Furick is our city manager, as I mentioned, and you probably know. So if you have a question or comment for the city manager, David Furick, it's 955-1400, 955-1400. You got a pothole in your street. Now's the time to call and say, when the hell is he going to fix that pothole in my street? So your response to that question, which a lot of people have, is C-Click Fix or what?
No, it's not called C-Click Fix anymore.
That's
it's Text My Gov.
Text My Gov.
Yeah.
Do I have the wrong app on my phone then?
You don't need an app. You just need a text.
Oh.
Yeah.
Text My Gov.
Text your Gov, yeah.
Wow. All right. Text My Gov.
Yeah.
Well, let me write that down. I'm sure you told me that before. But, of course, I forget things.
Yeah.
Is that all one word, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, actually, you just have to text to 408-9888.
All right.
You could text.
Wait a minute. 408 what?
9888.
888. Just text it to that number.
Yeah. So you just text pothole that number, and you'll get an automated response to say where and other things like that. And you put it in, and then that'll get it going.
I do want to mention before I forget, those little scooter things that this private company has,
Yep.
and younger people mainly, certainly not anybody my age, they run around town on these electric powered scooter. There's been one laying in front of my neighbor's house on 4th Avenue North over here for at least a week, probably 2 weeks.
All right. Okay. I'll let them know because those things should all be put away for the winter.
Yeah, let's do.
I don't know why it'd get missed because it should. Again, that's a pretty technologically based thing. The manager should know where that scooter is at all times. It should show up on his app that says, "Hey, the scooter's not in your shed." So
something happened, I guess. Anyway, 900 block of 4th Avenue North, and you'll find it. It's. I'm sure my neighbor's a single woman, and she probably doesn't really appreciate it in her yard, but
yeah.
But that's where it is anyway, and I don't understand those things. I don't even understand the need for some kids to run around town on it. Although that's just because I'm old and I don't understand change very well. I see younger people zooming all over the place. It's got to be a cheap form of transportation. How much does it cost for an hour on one of those?
I don't know because you don't pay by the hour. I think you pay by the mile. I think your first, honestly, I don't know. I've ridden them before in other cities, and the price would be like, so it's like, I don't know. I want to say like maybe it's like $2 to activate and then like $1 a mile or something like that.
Right.
So, relative to where they're really popular is in large cities because relative to like a cab, they're cheap.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And available. So they're kind of like that last mile of transportation when you're using public transit. So where you got to make a longer walk, the scooters are pretty cool. Now, what we found in Fort Dodge, where a lot of people have almost door-to-door transportation with their cars.
Yeah.
Not as much use of public transportation. These things have become more recreational, I would say, with, like you said, kids riding them around neighborhoods and things like that.
Is the DART bus system, do a lot of people still use that or not?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say a lot compared to like a major city, but it still gets used. There's a good population.
It's
that
a
uses
good
it.
investment still.
Yeah.
Because when we first got it, a lot of people were opposed. They didn't think we were a big enough town, and
Yeah.
as you alluded to. But way back, I wrote it a couple of times just to see if people did get on it, and by golly, they did.
It's one of those things. As if you were to look at it and look at its cost per trip, you would say, "Wow, that's really high."
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to a major metropolitan area where you could have easily tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people using them during a day, the cost per trip is relatively low. But it's part of when you're a city our size, if you're going to offer some form of regular public transportation, I mean, it's subsidized quite a bit, both locally and state and federally subsidized the DART bus. But the question is do you want it? Do you feel like we need that kind of service in town? So that's where the discussion really lies. It's not going to be one of those things where you can look at and say their cost per trip is kind of significant there.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's worth the investment because we do have an older population in town, and a lot of those folks don't drive, or they're uncomfortable driving in bad weather. Like certainly it's coming sooner or later here.
Yeah, we have.
So
that.
I'm not trying to even suggest that we get rid of DART bus, but I know that there was a big deal about it several years ago when we first got it.
Yeah, and over the years since I've been here, there's been discussions at at a higher policy level on does this make sense and things like that. Ultimately, the council's always seen the value of having DART bus, and there's been times where we've changed routes, reduced routes, or taken old routes out that weren't as used, and to kind of cut budgets back, and that's worked out pretty well so far. But again, it's you get older people use it. You get people that just don't have vehicles that need vehicles. You get younger people that can't drive yet that use DART bus to get around town.
Sure. So we had the swearing in yesterday of the new council members and the mayor, of course.
Yeah, we did.
I'm sorry I missed that, so I could ask them all what gender they identify with. You're just never going to respond to me when I say something like that, are you? Well, Bemrick will be in here later in the week.
Yeah.
I'll put him under the hot lights. But I'm sure he'll identify as a dude. Speaking of dudes, I did have former Councilman Jeff Holder here, I think the last week of December.
Okay.
Jeff served a couple of terms, 8 years.
He did.
Kind of sorry to see him go. Nothing on the new, no dispersions on any of the new council members who have been sworn in. I'm sure they'll do a good job, most of them.
Yeah.
But Jeff just brought a little humor to the whole situation, I think.
He did. Jeff and I were friends, and it was good having him on the city council. He always had a unique perspective to look at things. And, sometimes it'd make me laugh. Sometimes it'd make me think.
Well, that's what he did with me.
Yeah.
He was the Swami, and he and I would chant on air and all those sort of things. But Jeff's a bright guy, and he would take principled stands. And when he did, there were solid reasons why he did it. So good luck to Councilman Holder, and maybe his life as a public servant isn't over. I don't know. Maybe he'll try to do something else.
Yeah, maybe he'll try something else. I know he's busy and got a lot of work he's doing at the college with teaching and being an instructor out there.
Is he at the college?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was at the college. I thought he was still out here at the school.
No, 3 years ago, two. I could be wrong about that. Moved out to the college. Became an instructor out there.
Sure. Okay. Well, good for him.
Yeah.
State pays probably better than the city. Anyway, David Farrick is our guest city manager. If you have a question or comment for David, it's 955-1400, 955-1400. We had a budget meeting last night in the council.
We did. It's one of our budget series. We've already had two, and then we had three, including last night. And we'll have another three more, and then hopefully that'll wrap up all the budget presentations, and we'll get the final sort of approval document together for the council to approve before the end of March. Last night we went over the police and fire budgets. We just do two of them that night. They're the biggest departments as far as staff and funding goes. And And a couple of the highlights from the presentation, police went first. There's not a significant amount of changes there. When you think of just what you would consider traditional police budgets, just kind of continuing on of what we have. There's no defunding of the police, Mike, just so go on record.
I was going to ask.
So then, part of that also, when we talk police, is we talk parking as well. So we talked about the parking budget and
the parking budget. What do you mean by that?
So downtown parking,
All right.
we used to have meters. We don't have meters anymore. We still have lots that people can buy permits for. So it is its own little enterprise. People buy permits to generate revenue. We also get some revenue.
They're city-owned lots.
Tickets. These are city-owned lots. And then we have costs associated with maintaining lots and then, basically doing enforcement. So,
and the city-owned lots are behind the Brass Monkey or north of the Brass Monkey. Is that a city-owned lot?
That's a city-owned lot.
The lot behind the Larimar Ballroom.
That's a city-owned lot, even though that one's free. Then the lot behind Shiny Top or next to Crickets.
Yeah.
It's funny our lots get like bar names too. That's how people know them. And then City Hall, and then behind Bruce's Funeral Home, those are both city lots. And then the lot across from the Growth Alliance or behind Trolley Center, it's a city-owned lot.
Behind the Trolley Center.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those require permits now to use. So there's revenue coming for that. So like I said, we basically run it as an enterprise. So we explain what we think we're going to get as far as revenue, what our costs are going to be, and then how that works out to try to maintain good parking spots, a good lot, try to keep them upkeep. We do have a couple that are in pretty dire need of at least a resurfacing, if not a full reconstruction. So,
right.
So we're going to try to set some money aside for that. And we will have a newer, more advanced sort of parking and payment and permitting system here probably hopefully by March. So we can do a lot more modern way of people purchasing permits or purchasing a day pass or things like that. Have a more modern system also for then enforcing the 2-hour parking on the street.
I'm sorry, I've asked you this about 6 times. I got to ask you again. What is the name of the old Crossroads Mall area now?
Corridor Plaza.
Corridor Plaza.
That's how it's branded now.
The Corridor Plaza, from what I hear, seems to be an extension of Unity Point. There has been, there seems to be the most visible building out there seems to be attached to Unity Point, and there is conversation around town. Of course, I speak for all the coffee shop folks because I was out having some this morning in a couple of different restaurants.
At all the coffee shops. How many stops can you make and have coffee a day?
Well, I some days I don't go at all. Today I made 2. So, but there's a little conversation on Dunham's and other stores who were part of the Crossroads Mall for a long time. They're just told that they're not welcome there anymore and they have to get up and go. So I don't understand the business strategy in booting a long-term loyal business like Dunham's and what was the other one? I forget.
Bath and Body.
Bath and Body,
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of women are ticked about that,
Yeah. So I first will correct you.
All right.
There was no booting. And what was the other term you used? Just told they weren't welcome there. That's not the case.
What was the case, David?
The case is that Dunham's and the new mall owners did not come to an agreement on what the rent should be.
So they got booted.
It's not getting booted because they're leaving voluntarily now. They wouldn't have to leave probably for 6-8 months at least.
All right.
And maybe this is a good strategy for them to leave now. I don't know. I'm not in their business. I don't know. But they're not booted they're not required to leave now. Ultimately the space will be gone and there'll be other stuff there. But Dunham's isn't willing to pay rent in a new facility. What would be required to pay rent to make it cash flow. Now, this is according to the developer. So there could be the other side of the story. I don't know. I haven't been in any conversations personally with Dunham's about this, but I have talked to the developer on what the status of their negotiations. I don't think there have been any conversation with Dunham's and the property owner in several months at least.
Are they already closed now, or
No,
do you know?
no, I don't think so. I think they're open for another week or so. And then Bath and Body Works, that was news. That was news to me, and I didn't get a heads up from anybody that was coming. There, I mean, again, as they reported, they were not having sales the way they wanted for quite some years now, so they're not looking to relocate anywhere else.
All right.
I think the market could be good for something like that. I know the market. We did a market study, and the market, even with Dunham's and Decker open, we are underserved for
sporting goods.
Sporting
really?
goods, yes.
Well, that's
So
good news as far as I'm concerned.
It's a market that you could see other people getting into it. I know you got you got stores like Walmart and Target are into it to a certain degree, but they don't have a ton of space.
They don't
develop for that. And
I mean, they carry it because they're general stores.
Yeah.
Well, I'm anxious to say. I don't know why all the secrecy at this point, but
well, the secrecy at this point is and retailers are really jittery about their competition. Obviously, they live in a competitive world, knowing what they're doing before they're willing for the information to get out. So it is a super secret world, and developers.
yeah, again, I don't know the business.
Yeah,
I don't know what
they're really intense. They do not want their information out until they're ready for it
Okay.
to go out.
All right.
So developers won't share. We can't share until we know.
But you know, don't you?
Well, I don't know about I can't name another sporting goods retailer that is coming. I mean, I'm saying there's one coming. I'm saying our market says we can support another sporting goods retailer. So I think somebody.
This is a market analysis.
Yeah, we did a market analysis a couple years ago.
Is that available to the public, or?
Yeah, City did it, so it's public record.
Is it on the city Facebook page or website?
I don't know. I'd have to check whether it's on our website.
Let me know.
I mean,
it
probably would be if you dug through. Maybe not all of it. I'd have to check. Some, it's a pretty detailed study. There might be some of it that might be. No, I wouldn't think so. I'm having arguments with myself over open meetings, open records. Sorry, folks. But yeah, I can check on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and text me when you find out. Will you? Years ago, we had the Camaro study. You were here for that.
Yeah.
Former
downtown.
Mayor Lutz, the great Satan, distributed that pretty openly.
Mhm.
And Denny Ploutz made sure I had a copy of it. And we talked about the Camaro study for a long time and why this is the way to go. I wish the Growth Alliance could get back on the air, because there's a lot of questions I would like to ask them about whether, looking back how many years now from the Camaro study, if this was, if things never turn out the way we plan. And a plan is a good plan, and it's a great guide, and I believe in sticking to the plan, but it's never going to turn out the way exactly anybody thinks it is.
It's never going to be perfect because you don't control everything. When you're doing plans where you're involving private property, you can have an idea and you can try to set the correct environment through the plan and then follow up implementation to get the right kind of development in town, but you never exactly know how it's going to go. I think if you look at like the corridor plan, which was, started even before I started here 15 years ago, that's come out pretty well. We're pretty excited about the type of redevelopment we've gotten there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think the mall will do awesome. And downtown, we're getting stuff done. I mean, if there's one area where I think would really be good to get more of, and that is more that housing, that market rate housing, get the ward and something like that moving forward.
Do you think we need, and I'm glad you brought that up, do you think there's a demand for that type of housing that the ward would offer? In other words, decent apartments, kind of directed out educated professionals or skilled tradespeople or whatever. Isn't there more of a demand for private housing, individual units like we have out north of town with that development, or Windstone Circle or something?
No, I think there's a blend. And when we did an internal study several years ago looking at what our demand should be, and our major demand was on apartments, newer market rate apartments is where we were short. And we shared that with developers. Developers did their own study. They looked at our stuff, but obviously they're going to do their own study. And like the District 29 developers, they did their own study, and then they went and invested and built, the large
District
center.
29 now is.
That's the apartment complex out by the middle school.
Okay.
The new
All
one.
right. Yeah. Okay.
And that's doing really well, better than expectations as far as occupancy.
Sure.
So, I think it's I think we've done enough studying to realize there is a demand for that. It's just a matter of getting it to work from a business standpoint, where somebody can invest, take on some risk, and then make some money off it.
Well, that's an end of the game.
Yeah.
I encourage people to make money.
Yeah.
I encourage people to make money. I like to see it. I'm, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in favor. I got to get more business people on the air in this program. So if you have any suggestions, put it on my Facebook page. Call the radio station here. My number is 955-5656, extension 141. I want to hear from the business community more. Actually, I'm getting a little tired of ranting about practically everything. But it's business that drives us forward a lot of times, in my opinion. And there's a new economy out there. I ran into a young man who came and power washed my deck. He's very ambitious, and he wants to expand his business in other ways. I'm glad to see we have a lot of people who move snow, and Stumpy does, of course. Pat Hogan has a business along that lines as well, and those are all people who have adapted to the new economy.
Yeah, and it's great seeing the younger people out there being entrepreneurial. I mean, it's not like it's just different times where people can find different careers or business options that just never existed. That we never thought of. I mean, I took a pretty traditional career path. I mean, there's a pretty traditional career path.
Yeah.
And, I look back at my parents. My dad had worked for the same employer, I think, his entire career. I mean, it's just now with this newer generation, they're way more, I don't know, dynamic, aggressive with some of their business opportunities. It's neat to see.
Yeah, they got guts, and I encourage them to press forward. This is another traditional business, but I'm glad we got Doc Shivers over here at the Dodger Tap.
That's neat.
Yeah, because I like his food, and he's put me to sleep with those big sandwiches a couple of different times. I went home, took a little nap. So I'm glad of that. I just need to. I know there's a lot of innovative people out there who are thinking of ways for internet businesses. That's really what I'm focused on: the internet businesses and why they choose to go on the internet. I hope there's still room for traditional retail shopping. We kind of hoped that was the case when we did the Crosstown Connector that would stimulate downtown retail shopping. I don't know how well that's done, but
I think there are things that are being done that are positive. There are what I think will make downtown is not just the shopping, but the experience. It's got to, where downtowns are successful. When I think of the new downtowns that are, we're competing with shopping malls and are now competing with the internet, it becomes an experience. It becomes something somebody wants to do.
Yes.
Not just going and buying shaving cream, for example.
Right.
It's okay. We want to go here because we want to experience this. We want to experience this meal out, or this is a unique feature that I can't just buy online, or I got to do something, those kind of things. Or we want to enjoy this, shopping experience. That's where I think the downtown, I think we're getting there. We're getting businesses where people, they're destinations where people want to come to and see what's going on in the store and buy something that either they can't buy online or they don't want to buy online.
Boy, I wish we'd get some more. And maybe this is something that time has passed. We used to have a lot of great restaurants in Fort Dodge, like the Sandstone or Jimmy's Black Knight, or even the it's across from the old library. I can't remember what it is now, but anyway, places where you could have a steak and maybe dress up a little bit, and maybe the culture's changed and that's no longer a deal.
Dressing up and going out and having a steak, that might not be that.
Well,
that was kind of the old.
I don't
way.
mean put on a 3-piece suit and a big.
No, I know what you mean though.
Actually. So here I am sitting here wearing a sweatshirt and jogging pants, sweatpants. But if I wouldn't go into the Sandstone this way or Jimmy's Black Knight, either one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and I hope we can get some of those. We have great restaurants in town, and I hope we can get some of those. Have some more and see more unique opportunities. I think that's what drive. I think downtown there is opportunity for that. I know the folks that have been down here recently have been pretty successful. The new businesses, Shiny Top and River Hops and all those, they've done well. I think there's more space. As the more people we can get living downtown that are like the idea of, hey, let's go walk for supper and have a drink and walk for supper and walk home and don't have to worry about driving anywhere. I think that's where the downtown really starts getting successul.
David, good. This has been a good segment for us. They're all pretty good, really, whether you think so or not. But I thank you for taking the time and coming over here again, and we'll talk to you next week. Back at your old time Monday, hopefully, unless you'd like to do Tuesday for some reason.
Yeah, as long as I'm not a buzzkill for you, whatever
you're not a buzzkill.
I normally do Tuesday. Mike.
Well, see, Bemrick doesn't like my sense of humor anymore. He wants to come across the counter and wrestle me every time. He's just getting kind of be a little bit of a bully. Now that he's been elected again, he'll really be difficult to live with. So, anyway, right. David Friggs been our guest. Thank you very much.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD, banging Monday through Friday from 2 to 5.
It's 4:36. News is next.
Grief is a natural part of life. As hard as it is, we must find ways through it and not around it. We at Gunderson's